Hello, everyone, and hope you survived or managed to survive the festivities of the last couple of days, Christmas and New Year. And we are going to look at the year's first astrological event, which is the Cancer full moon. It will be exact on the 6th of January, sometime around 11 p.m. in London. And of course, depending on where you are on the globe, the date may differ. For instance, for us Hungarians, it occurs on the 7th of January at 0 hours and 8 minutes. Why is this important or interesting? That Capricorn Cancer dichotomy describes also the parents. It's the parental axis. But first, let's look at the time in the year. I mean, the actual season. And Capricorn is the darkest season. It is where it's dark and gloomy and cold. And Cancer is the brightest. And it's not always the hottest, of course, because somehow temperature follows light. So first light sets in and then temperature. It's the other way around as well. So when the light starts diminishing, you still feel the heat, and so cold comes after the darkness. Darkness sets in first and then comes cold. So, but at the same time, if you look at it, and if you know that our ancestors cherished light and labeled it as love and grace, and at the same time they hated darkness and gloom, then you can see that these the Cancer Capricorn axis really carries something more meaningful than just two signs on the zodiac, because it is these are the two farthermost points, let's put it this way, on the ecliptic. And if you look at it from a psychological point of view, or astrological psychology, then you will realize that Cancer is linked to motherhood and parenting at all, but both signs are linked to parenting in a way, because Cancer is ruled by the moon and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Now, there are actually astrological schools, for instance, astrological psychology, which consider Saturn the mother and not the moon. But most of the time, moon is the mother, and Saturn is some sort of authority figure. It could be a teacher, could be the harsh, disciplinary father. But if you look at it, what's interesting is that the moon is closest to us, and Saturn is the last visible planet. So it also gives us the measurement of perspective, the closest to us and farthest to us. So it really has a lot of interesting connotations. Now let's take a look at the London chart. I'm going to show it to you. And if you look at the chart itself, it has some nice features. One is that Libra is rising. It's a little bit far for my taste, but yes, it is very close to the supergalactic center. I give it a 2-degree ope, so we could say that the supergalactic center is rising with this chart for London. And also Ceres is conjunct the dark moon. Now the Liliths are quite prominent in this chart because the asteroid Lilith is in the 12th. The dark moon is linked to Ceres and is rising. And the black moon, if you look at it, it's at the very, very end of Cancer. It is ready to move into Leo, so it's going to shift energy soon. The sun is exactly conjunct retrograde Mercury. Now, this is a separating conjunction. It's doubly separating because the sun is going forward and Mercury is going retrograde. But the moon is also conjunct Pallas Athena, which is an applying conjunction, because Pallas Athena is also retrograde and the moon is going forward. So they're going in a couple of hours, they are going to be exactly conjunct. To me, it was fascinating to note that the two cerebral thinking, communicating planets, or one is a planet, one is an asteroid, are retrograde, both Mercury and Pallas Athena. They do differ, of course, because Mercury is everyday discourse and communication, while Pallas Athena is wisdom. and it carries the wisdom behind your words and behind your thinking. But both are retrograde, suggesting that although the sun and the moon are both infusing them with energy and insight, you need to look backwards. You need to look inside yourself to find the answers that you're seeking. And of course, there's also for this opposition, there's also a trapeze, if you can see it, involving Uranus and Vesta at its top. We are going to look at this configuration in a minute. So that's the chart for the full moon in London. Now, if you take a look at the chart, there's a very interesting midpoint structure, and I'm going to take this apart for you. First of all, Juno is at the midpoint of the Jupiter-Neptune. And what is Jupiter-Neptune? First of all, what is Juno and Jupiter? Juno is the wife and Jupiter is the husband of the celestial pair. And they are, of course, the mother and father of gods. Juno is the queen of heaven. Whenever we see a Juno-Jupiter nice aspect, I always say that this is a marriage created in heaven. And at the same time, Jupiter enlarges everything it touches. It is also, it means also, luck and enthusiasm and growth. And Neptune is transcendence and also, of course, artistic abilities and mysticism. So Juno being at the Jupiter-Neptune midpoint suggests that this is some sort of togetherness, some sort of relationship that is infused with success, luck, and transcendence. Astrea, on the other hand, is at the midpoint of the Neptune-Vesta. And again, Neptune-Vesta could be translated as focusing on transcendence or artistic endeavors or esoteric knowledge. And Astrea is the karma breaker. So Astrea, how can you break old embedded karma? How can you change your destiny? By focusing on Neptunian ideas, Neptunian things. And the Neptune itself is at the midpoint of the Jupiter-Vesta. And again, Jupiter not only means optimism and expansion and luck, but also some sort of knowledge. It is the ability to synthesize knowledge. So you can say that if you want to achieve enlightenment and transcendence, Neptune, you need to focus Vesta on Jupiter, knowledge, and also luck and expansion, of course. So that's a very interesting structure, I think, in this particular new moon, full moon. So it really enlarges the understanding of just the Cancer-Capricorn dichotomy, which I said is really linked to the parental axis. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the declinations in a minute, but let's go back to the chart itself. As you see, the moon and Pallas Athena are in an applying conjunction. So they are conjunct in Cancer. But let's take a look at the declinations. Again, declinations are placements relative to the celestial equator. When you see minus in the declinational column, it is the southern hemisphere, and when you see pluses, it's the northern hemisphere. I should say that in mathematics, we never say plus. Every number that is in the plus region is just the number, and when it's the minus region, you need to use the minus. But this is an American program, and I think that they didn't want the confusion, which we kind of know. If you learned mathematics in Europe, this is something that they teach you immediately. But anyhow, the fact remains that if you see minuses, it's on the southern hemisphere. Otherwise, with the pluses, it's on the northern hemisphere. You can see that two regular planets are out of bounds. The moon, which is at 2657, so it's quite out of bounds, it's quite to the north. And then Mars is still out of bounds, 24 degrees and 30 minutes. And of course, it's still retrograde, as we saw. And this means that they are both on the northern hemisphere above the ecliptic, out there in this dark region, which we delineate, of course, in a way that whenever you have a planet within the confines of the ecliptic, on the zodiac, so to speak, then those planets work or behave in a natural human way, but when they are out there in the dark, they behave differently. They might become even inhuman, but actually they have universally interesting features. And if you take a look at Pallas Athena, you will see that it's very, very out of bounds. It's at minus 31 degrees and 32 seconds. So it's on the southern hemisphere, very, very, very deeply to the south. It's important to notice and note that asteroids and centaurs are very often out of bounds. So we don't delineate them because it's natural for them to be out of bounds. The reason I put it here, because this is the third asteroid, so it's an important one, and I should mention that the four main asteroids, Ceres, Pallas Athena, Juno, and Vesta, used to be minor feminine planets for at least 40-something years before Astraea, the fifth one, got discovered, because they didn't know at that point what they were actually, and they thought that they were just minor planets. But when Astraea was discovered in, I believe in 1846, she was so tiny that you couldn't say minor planet, of course, and that is when they reclassified, recategorized them, and they became asteroids themselves. So as I said, they are very often out of bounds. We never delineate asteroids and centaurs that are out of bounds, because it's their natural behavior to leave the confinements of the ecliptic, so to say, and step into the dark and step out of the human levels and go beyond or above them. But as you see, Pallas Athena is quite out of bounds at the moment, and at a totally different period of a hold on, I made a mistake here. Sometimes it happens. I should use slides, but anyhow, you can see here, I give you two perspectives. The first one is, and I left there the Hungarian inscription, sorry about that. Égi egyenlítő means celestial equator in Hungarian, and ecliptica means, of course, ecliptics, but you can see what I want to show you. So when we use the ecliptic coordinates, it's not obvious immediately, but with the ecliptical coordinates, you can see that, yes, they are totally aligned in Cancer, but as you can see, the moon is out of bounds in the northern hemisphere, and Pallas Athena is out of bounds in the southern hemisphere. So they are at a totally different place. If you use, and that is why it's important to use declinations as well. As I promised, I'm going to take you to show you the classic trapeze that is between the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Pallas Athena, oppositions, and then Uranus and retrograde Uranus and Vesta. As you can see in this configuration, we have 3 retrograde planets. So both your normal communication, your wisdom, and your change, the ability to change and the ability to renew Uranus are working inwardly. So you need to find the answers in yourself. And then Vesta is a focusing principle. That is why I call this new moon a focus, full moon. Why do I keep calling this new moon? It's of course the full moon, a focusing full moon. So that is the trapeze. The top of the trapeze is Uranus Vesta, focus on changes. This is very, very important, because very dark periods are before us. The powers that be want to push us back into the Middle Ages. They take away our energy supplies, they take away our food supplies. It's really ridiculous how they want to bump us back into poverty and hunger and starvation, because that's what's happening. And the problem is that it's totally dishonest and totally unnecessary. Think about that, please, and don't let yourself be fooled. Here are the transcendental objects of this configuration. On the Sun Mercury, sorry, I'm trying to find a place where you can see everything. Hopefully this is it. On Sun Mercury, you have Adonis. Adonis is a youth who is beautiful. He's so beautiful that Aphrodite falls in love with him, but the youth is really exceptionally beautiful, so she doesn't dare to keep him on the in the regular world. She takes it down to the underworld and asks Persephone to look after him. Of course, Persephone falls in love with him as well, and so doesn't want to give him back to the goddess of love. And then Zeus tries to somehow rectify the situation, and interesting enough, he divides Adonis's time, Adonis's year, in three equal portions. I don't know what it is, but anyhow, so for 1/3 of the time he has to be with Aphrodite. For another third of the time he has to stay in the underworld with Persephone, and for the rest, the third installment, he can be with himself. So he gets time with himself as well. I think it's fascinating. And on the Mercury Sun conjunction, you have two bright stars, Rugbat and Vega. Both are Alpha stars. Rugbat is Alpha Sagittarius, and Vega is Alpha Lyra. Again, you will see that these two stars are at totally different areas in the sky. And as you can see, both are Alpha stars, but it only means that they are the brightest within their own constellation. But it's when you look at the absolute magnitude, you will see that Vega is much brighter. It's a 0 degree, I mean 0 magnitude star, and Rugbat is 4.1. So actually, it's much Vega is much brighter. Rugbat is the knee of the centaur of Sagittarius, and it provides stability and strength, while Vega is one of the shaman stars. In olden ages, Lyra used to be another bird, and there were 3 birds flying towards what do you call it? Polaris, so the pole star of the northern star. And Vega used to be a bird, so it used to be a shamanic bird, or the symbol of shamans who are flying towards the pole and wanting knowledge. But of course, nowadays Vega is linked to the lyra, so the musical instrument. But again, music is transporting you to higher spheres, higher dimensions. On the moon, you have a Heclus, a centaur that describes dilemmas of truth and reality. And this is a painful centaur. All centaurs are linked to karmic wounds. And you would think first, at a first glance, why is this such a big deal? Why, I can tell you that a number of suicides are committed simply because the person cannot rectify, cannot reconcile the discrepancy between his own truth inside and the reality outside. It's a very painful situation, and it's almost unreconcilable, to tell you the truth. So that is described by a Heclus. On Pallas Athena, you have Vasat, which is Delta Gemini. And it is the elbow of the celestial twins, and it is a world. It describes a world where you learn how to make decisions. On Uranus, you have Euterpe, a muse, so it's divine understanding and channeling, and 2 bright stars, again very at a very different position in the sky: Menkar, which is Alpha Cetus, and Almach, which is Gamma Andromeda. And you can see Gamma is the 3rd brightest star in the constellation, but Almach is brighter than Menkar, which is the alpha star of Cetus. Now, Cetus occupies a position in the sky which is below the ecliptic, and as Bernard Brady described, it is occupying a liminal space on the ecliptic, where one ecliptical constellation finishes and the other one hasn't started yet, and Cetus is guarding this position, and it is the subconscious emerging trying to emerge to the conscious levels. And Almach is linked to, of course, the story of Andromeda, who is the daughter of Cepheus. So she's a princess who is first bound and left there for the Set to devour her. But of course, she is then she's then rescued and she becomes a very happy wife. The whole constellation of Andromeda is linked to the feminine, who is bound, but at the same time saved. And then on Vesta, you have Hannibal, a general, a very successful general. And again, Adonis. And then Teharon, Hiavako, and Ahernar. And Adonis, we spoke about Adonis already. No, this is, you know what? This can't be Adonis in two places. I made a mistake probably. Anyhow, why did I do that? I have no idea. I make sometimes stupid things. Anyhow, Teharon, Hiavako is a centaur. It is linked to a wise guy who is giving advice after a big cataclysm, telling you how to survive, giving you aid to learn new skills at a situation which is totally after a total cataclysm. And we need to focus on that as well. And then Ahernar is a bright star. It's the brightest star in the celestial river. Eridanus is the biggest, the biggest constellation in the sky. It's the celestial river sets off at the celestial equator and goes all the way down to the South Pole. And it describes the hero's journey, leaving the balanced equilibrium of his state and then entering on a quest, and then after lots of trials and tribulations, he finally arrives at the brightest potential, and that is Alpha Eridanus, which is at the last spot of the this constellation. So it's quite a brilliant and beautiful star. I promised you to show Vega and Rukbat. Again, I give you two perspectives. One is equatoria, and the other one is ecliptica. And you can see that Vega is on the northern hemisphere and Rukbat is below the ecliptic. It's still it is a zodiacal constellation, of course, Sagittarius, but it's quite to the south. And if you see the ecliptical view, it's more obvious that yes, they are both aligned with the sun. So that is it for this particular full moon. Happy full moon. Consider your chances and your options, and think about survival techniques, because you will need those who live in the country and have fields and soil around them have a better chance to grow stuff and a better chance to survive a period which is totally unnecessary and totally sinister, and we just hope that a lot of people will wake up and realize that we should not live like this, what the powers that be are planning for us. Happy full moon. Thank you for listening. Bye.